We're glad to have you back. Since the first quarter of 2020, the Nigerian economy battled serious foreign exchange crisis with severe pressures on forex market and external reserves. Local currency is under the grip of tough external pressure, characterized by internal foreign exchange shortages and consistently high black market rates, which have led to high disparity between official exchange rates and black market rates. Over time, there has been a growing demand for a unified exchange rate regime as distortions from the current multiple rates continue to hurt the economy and give considerably advantage to middlemen. Against this backdrop, the CBN has begun gradual harmonization of exchange rates with the removal of 379 naira to a dollar official rates from its website. This latest move by the Apex Bank implies that the importers and exporters window is now the default reference exchange rate for official transactions in the country. Now, what does this new development mean for local currency and the economy at large? Joining me live via Skype, like I said earlier, he's Mr. Taiwo Kwande. He's a partner, Deloitte Nigeria. Good afternoon, Mr. Kwande.
Good afternoon, Tolu.
Yes, Mr. Kwande, I want to start from where Mr. Robert stopped. I know you also know that inflation figures will be out shortly, and that's the big news everywhere. We're waiting for what the figures will look like. What are you expecting, and what are the fundamentals you're putting together for your assertion?
I think, like Mr. Robert said, the trend, as we saw in the last 3-4 months, will continue. But the expectation around the inflation rate is that we are going to start seeing an improvement in the rate, possibly maybe in the second quarter of the year. There are a few things that are taking shape. One of those is the improvement in the global supply chain. We've seen an improvement in trade in recent time. If that is going to have a significant impact on how things are being done in Nigeria, and if port operations that government has been talking about are also improved on, then there's likely going to be a lot of trading activities in the country. And if that happens, there is likely going to be a reduction in inflation rate as the year progresses. So I expect something to happen in the second quarter before the end of second quarter of the year. But for now, I expect to see a similar trend like we saw in the last 3 months to happen, when the results of tomorrow is released.
All right, that moves me to the ratings or figures we got from the World Trade Organization saying that global trade has also recorded a decline of 15%, the highest in 19 years. I was also thinking these are ways that we could also shore up reserves for Nigeria and their issues with global trade. What do you think is responsible for this?
So that is not surprising, considering some of the things that we saw happening in the last 3 months. And if you also consider the existing tension between the United States and China regarding the trade tariff, until that is resolved, we are likely going to be seeing that particular disruption in the trade numbers. Unfortunately, we also have a situation with COVID-19, especially with the recent outbreak in India. India is a big trading partner for a lot of countries in the world. So if India is affected, and if India's economic activity in India is shut down completely as it is now, it is not surprising that that is having a significant impact on the number of the activities with regard to the global economy and the international trade. So, and what we also saw recently with respect to the hesitancy with respect to COVID-19 vaccine is also contributing a lot to the issue of global trade. I know that a lot of developed countries have been striving to encourage their citizens to be open to taking this COVID-19 vaccine. If this happens, that will have a significant impact on the border issue, the clearance issue with respect to trade, with respect to goods. And if that, happens in the next 3 to 4 months, some of the issues that we have experienced in the last 3 or 4 months, we no longer be there. And we are going to likely see a significant increase in global trade.
Staying with global trade, as we would always say, I'm a Nigerian and I'm proud to be a Nigerian, that our own Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is at the helm of affairs. Some are thinking that, yes, a lot of positives should come to Africa's most populous nation. What do you think? How better do you think we can do with regards to global trade, improving trade? Because don't forget, on the other side, we still have the AfCFTA, and our manufacturing sector is not as competitive as it should be. In fact, Mr. Roberts says, and we know the figures, that we are still in recession with our manufacturing sector. How competitive do you see Nigeria playing in this market? How well are we going to do?
Yeah, that's a good point with respect to WTO. The effectiveness of the new leadership of WTO is very important to how the global trade will shape out in the next year or so. I honestly, believe that with the new leadership at the WTO, and if the leadership is able to resolve the conflict between the United States of America and China, that would go a long way in helping, to turn around or to set us to the path of recovery with respect to the global trade. Another thing that I think we should be looking at is the issue with the digital economy. We've seen an uptick in the activities around global digital economy in the last 1 year or so, especially since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. And I know it's one of the agenda of the WTO to encourage digital trade among trading partners in the world. If the WTO is able to achieve this, and the digital economy is on an upward trajectory in terms of growth, then global trade will also, improve significantly. So you mentioned something about the AfCFTA. As you are aware, AfCFTA is the newest trade bloc in the world, and as far as that trade bloc is concerned, it's about the next biggest after the European EU trade bloc. So now, for Nigeria to be able to take advantage of the AfCFTA, we must be able to develop our port operations, improve on our port operations, so that exportation from the country will be encouraged. Because when people are able to export out of the country, Nigeria will not turn around to become a dumping ground for most of the other African economies. So, so I see a lot of good things on the horizon if we are able to develop our port operations and we increase the level of exportation in the country. Sometimes people think everything is doom and gloom. I don't agree with that. I think if we are able to take advantage of some of the some of the policies, some of the key policies, key trade policies that have been introduced by governments with respect to trade, then we should be able to at least benefit from an increase in trade on an ongoing basis. So in the next 2-3 years, if you are able to make the AfCFTA fully operational, as far as the trading by Nigeria companies is concerned, then we are likely going to see significant growth in the Nigerian economy. And if the global economy is also continue on this trajectory of recovery, Nigeria is also going to benefit a lot in the short and long term.
Yeah, I like the sound of positivity there. I'm also a positive and optimistic Nigerian. Now, I'm looking at attracting investment into the Nigerian economy in its entirety. Some are saying the manufacturing sector is not even as attractive as it should be. We hear of companies now going to Ghana, to start up businesses that we know that if it's to be established in Nigeria, it will create jobs and opportunities for young ones. Now, how can we make our sectors, manufacturing and the power sector? Now let's use that as our focus, the manufacturing and the electricity sector. How can we make these two sectors attractive? I see them as job creators, these two sectors, if they can really work well. What do you think?
I agree. And so be clear, these two sectors are dependent on each other.
Yes.
The manufacturing sector and the electricity sector. When when you were trying to introduce this section, you mentioned something about forex and the unification of the forex rate by the CBN.
Yes.
So it's an important step, to take in the development of our electricity sector. As you are aware, there are private sector players in the electricity sector that are, not allowed to operate independently of the government, because the government is still subsidizing the tariff, electricity tariff, which makes it appear like that sector is still being regulated. So government will need to deregulate that particular sector to make it more competitive. So if the sector is deregulated, private players will be able to operate freely. Private players will be able to compete among each other, and the tariff related to electricity will come down significantly. So if that is developed, and the manufacturing sector that is dependent on that sector is able to reduce the cost of manufacturing significantly, because if you look at most manufacturing companies in the country, one of the biggest costs of manufacturing is energy, is the cost of power. So if you are able to reduce the cost of power, the cost of petroleum, the cost of fuel, and that will make you to report high margin and reduce the price at which manufactured products are being sold to final consumers, then that is likely going to help Nigerian companies to be competitive. At the moment, Nigerian manufacturing companies are not that competitive because of the prices of our products. If we are not competitive at African level, then we are not going to be able to take advantage of some of the policy or the introduction of this AfCFTA. Now, like I said, AfCFTA affords us a lot of opportunities, but for us to be able to take advantage of to leverage those opportunities, we must be able to bring something valuable to the table, because other economies within the African region will not be buying from us at a significantly higher price if they can afford to buy from other countries at significantly lower prices. So, which is, like I said, is very important. Our manufacturing sector has to be competitive. The cost of production has to reduce significantly for us to be able to sell at affordable prices to other countries within the African region.
Before I let you go, Mr. Taiwo, if we can do this in a minute. You talked about subsidy now for the electricity sector. And before Robert left here too, we talked about subsidy for the petroleum sector. Can government sustain all of these subsidies at this time, where revenue continues to dwindle, price of crude not looking very good, foreign reserves continue to drop by the day?
So I don't think it's sustainable in the long term. I think for now, it's still something that government will have to do, but in the long term, it's not sustainable. So government will have to remove the subsidy completely and liberalize the electricity sector and the downstream oil and gas sector. It's very important for government to do that. And if governments don't want the impact of the removal to be fed by the ordinary citizens, what they will need to do is to deregulate the sector. Government is still playing a big role in the electricity sector and the downstream oil and gas sector. Government has to encourage competition. if there is competition, people will find a way to produce at lower prices because there will be competition with regard to price, with regard to cost. You want to be the cost leader. If you are the cost leader, there is a possibility that you will be a big market player. Competitors will always lead to reduction in prices as long as people are not collaborating on price fixing. So if that is the case, I think subsidy is something that government should be thinking of removing in the next, in the long term, because it is not sustainable. The country will continue to be in a financial precarious situation if we do not remove subsidy immediately, both in the electricity sector and the downstream oil and gas sector.
Mr. Taiwo Okunade is a partner with Deloitte Nigeria. Thank you very much for sparing out this time your busy schedule to talk to us on this very important topic. I appreciate this. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.